Good, thank
Excellent.
you. Great. Well, welcome everyone. We're glad
Ready.
Gina Vaughn are glad and I are glad to be here with you all today. I'm Catherine Gamble with Gale Perry Group and Gina Vaughn, who's our Vice President for Client Services. And so we're going to talk with you all a little bit today about consulting, our favorite topic, but really what that means. And I think we'll have a fun time with this conversation. Gina, how about you?
Yes, I was just thinking about this. Whenever somebody asks me what I do, I inevitably have to explain what a fundraising consultant does and also what we don't do. So this is not an unfamiliar conversation. I'm excited to have it with you today.
Yeah, it'll be fun. So we're going to pull back the curtain a little bit for you all today and just kind of, it's just some real talk. This is not a sales pitch or, come join us pitch or anything like that. This is just an opportunity for us to share with you a little bit about, what it means to bring a consultant into your organization to help you achieve whatever it is you're trying to achieve. So let's pull back that curtain a little bit, Gina. Let's just talk for a minute about, let's set this up like this, if you will. Let's say an executive director or head of school or someone is talking to their board and they're beginning to talk about, maybe they need to have a consultant come and help. And boy, that kind of gets all kinds of pictures going in board members' heads, wouldn't you say? And what are some of those misconceptions that we run up against?
I think the most obvious one is that if you hire a consultant, the money, the funding automatically follows, um, which would be lovely. I'd love to be able to provide that service. Unfortunately, that's not really the way philanthropy works. And the other big one is for some organizations or often board members wondering if we're going to do the fundraising for the organizations. In other words, are we going to be asking their donors for commitments? And those are um, there's more nuance to it than that. We want to be guides, not the folks who actually execute.
Right. And that reminds me of this story years ago. In fact, this organization is a current client doing really great work. We got past this misconception. It took a while though. But I'll never forget getting on a campaign planning study. You might know it, our audience might know it also as a feasibility study. I got on a discussion on Zoom with a board member. And before I could even say, hello, my name is with this person, the first question out of his mouth was, are you bringing us some new donors?
Mhm,
First question.
mhm.
And to exactly your point, I think that's often what especially board members think, but so do people within the organization think that too.
I think that's true. And so sometimes when I'm trying to provide a little gentle education on why we don't do that, I have to remind organizations or some of our, organizational leaders. So if we were to simply bring you donors that we know of from our work with other clients, that would also mean that your donors would be names that we would be sharing with other folks down the line. And nobody that's unethical. So we're not going to do it. But B, you wouldn't want it. Um, and also, just because people are money or do have some funds, have capacity and are philanthropic, doesn't mean that they have affinity to a specific cause or another. So it's not all causes, it's your cause. So it's more targeted than just having the funds to be able to give,
Exactly.
desire
And
to do it.
yeah, exactly. And so it's kind of like that. You teach a man to fish and he can feed his family or woman to feed their family for whatever, many amount of time. And that's really kind of what we spend our time with clients doing is really, as you said it earlier, Gina, coaching, guiding them to be really successful with those people that already deeply care about their organization. We see that a lot with that oftentimes not all, but many times organizations really do have the capacity within their current donor pool. They just haven't known how to unlock it.
Mhm.
And but that also leads to us, having to really manage the expectations of our clients and help them understand. really how to get the most out of their consulting dollar. I'll tell this one more story, another story. Years ago, a former client of ours, I was talking to the CEO, and the CEO said, "Well, you know, Catherine," and he was saying his development officer says, "We really don't have to do what you say." And no, client doesn't have to do exactly what we say. But then I said to the CEO, well, do you know what that means? What this director of development said? And he said, no, what does that mean? I said, that means you're not getting the return on your consulting investment by not taking recommendations and advice. And I think that is sometimes a key misalignment we observe. Wouldn't you agree, Gina?
I do think so. Because sometimes when you come to an organization, the fix is not the easy fix that they sort of anticipated. The inclination might be, okay, well, then I don't have to listen to you because there has to be an easier way. Well, the reality is it's not easy, but we can, as fundraising consultants, we and others like us can help you avoid some of the pitfalls.
Mhm.
That we've seen organizations run into. I think that's the biggest value is just the breadth of experience across many organizations, so you know what works and what doesn't.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so those shortcuts that we often provide can save a client time, um, and ultimately create a positive impact on their campaign or their revenue growth or whatever service it is that they have engaged us to do. And I mean, talk a little bit, Gina, about some of the things that we do with clients, some of the key work that we do and how we conduct some of that. So it might help some of those that might be listening today to see how does the consultant work with the
yeah,
team.
yeah. So I'll give an example, and I'm going to tie it to something that you just said, and around avoiding pitfalls. So, for instance, something that we can help with is helping to identify your top prospects. And so here's sort of the interesting thing. A lot of times we see organizations who consider their top prospects the folks that they know
Mhm.
who are engaged and they give consistently, and maybe they give at a leadership annual fund level, something like that.
Mhm.
And those are the top prospects because of their engagement, which is wonderful. But really, a top prospect needs to be somebody who both has capacity and is engaged. And sometimes that's not always the easy person to get in front of. But it is where you find the highest ROI. And so one of the things that we can do is help you identify where in your prospect pool is the highest ROI. And if it's not already engaged, in other words, if you don't already have a relationship with them, how do you establish that relationship? And that's the kind of thing, we can help provide counsel on.
Right. And that how to provide a build that relationship with that donor that Gene is talking about is really that strategy or strategic coaching that a good consultant provides their client and we provide our clients, in that we really get deep in the weeds with prospect strategy that the client executes. As Gina said earlier, we don't execute that. You wouldn't really want your consultant to do that because you have the opportunity to develop that deeper relationship with your client, with your donor, excuse me, with your donor that really leads to more major gifts in the future. I mean, it's not just one campaign, one and done. I mean, you're building relationships with your constituents that holds you in good stead for long periods of time. The donors don't make one major gift in their lifetime. And so knowing how to develop that relationship, and then meaning you've done it successfully with a certain set of donors, you'll be able to continually do that with your donors, leading to continued success. That is just, I think, such a critical thing. I will say this, though, I'll pull this little curtain back a little bit. I know so many times where I have done the kind of coaching, and people might be thinking, well, you don't know these donors. I mean, we work all across the United States, and Gina's in the DC area, and I'm in North Carolina. And but we work with clients all over, and we can still do that kind of coaching because we understand donor psychology. I would say that's one thing. And Gina referenced our breadth of experience across our team, also important. But I could tell you sometimes, Gina, when I give advice to clients about specific donor strategy, which is sort of like, okay, if they say this, why don't you try this and
Mhm.
these kinds of things, and then let me know how it goes because I'm like a little nervous. Like,
Mhm.
you're hoping you've just nailed it all right.
Mhm.
For that client to be successful. But that does create, I think that's where some of our stress comes from, that we want our clients to be so successful. And when we coach them, we are so hopeful that it's going to be what it is that's needed.
Yeah, it's actually kind of interesting how even when you work with a number of organizations at any given time, how you start knowing their donors by first name. So when somebody says, "Well, Bill told me," and we all know who Bill is, you know.
Right.
Um, but yeah, you sort of take it on as your own.
Mhm.
And so I think that for me, when I'm in the position of helping to coach a client in terms of cultivation strategy, I'm thinking of how I would interact with that donor.
Exactly. I mean, that's just exactly what I was, exactly. And we go back on our, all of us on our team have been in major gift officers or been development directors or whatever our positions have been through the years. So it's not like we just picked up a book and read it. Um, well, we read books, but we, it's not how we became good consultants. So, look, I think that's another thing, Gina. What led you to want to be a consultant? I think that would be an interesting thing to share with our audience because I think it makes a difference as
Yeah.
who we are and what we bring to the table.
Well, so I started in development in the education sector, but what led me to want to be a consultant was that I wanted to experience not only more sectors, but more organizations within the various nonprofit sectors. Um, because it's that breadth of experience that I think really informs the knowledge of donor behavior. And I think it's a matter, for me, it was a matter of curiosity. I wanted to see more.
Mhm. I think
Yeah.
I feel a little bit the same way. And actually, when I started my fundraising career, I won't say how long ago, a long time, at a recommendation of, so I had no idea that this was a career option. This was a long time ago.
Mhm.
And didn't really know much about it. And somebody suggested I look at fundraising as a career. They thought I would be good at it, actually. And so I did some homework and I ended up starting my career with a consulting company, but realized kind of like what you're saying, I needed to go out and gain experience actually in the field, practicing the work in order to be a better consultant. So my objective was to always at some point come back to consulting, which I did. But after I had, gone through the ringer as a practitioner, which, gotten beaten up a few times, not literally, but, figuratively in the workplace with experience and that kind of thing. And again, I think, being able to, like you said, being able to help a broader array of
Mhm.
organizations. I too was in the education sector and then the arts and culture sector. That was the two sectors I worked in, but there are a lot more industries
Yeah.
in nonprofits, so being able to help a lot of, to see the differences and to see, I think, importantly, the commonalities.
Yeah. And there are commonalities across sectors. Even when you think about something like healthcare, where there is,
Mhm.
healthcare fundraising does tend to be perceived a little bit differently in terms of things like grateful patient fundraising. But the principles are still the same.
Mhm.
And I, if I had to boil it down to one thing, in terms of donor engagement, it is about having a transparent, authentic um, conversation about what's important to that prospective donor,
Mhm.
why they're interested in your organization, because presumably this isn't a cold call. This is somebody that has demonstrated some level of affinity, um,
Mhm.
and trying to pair their objectives for their philanthropy with what your organization is hoping to accomplish. Um, and to present them with an opportunity. Fundraising is not a dirty word.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. We
So,
said recently, I think there was, we've been doing that course on the Major Gift Officer Boot Camp, and Gina shared this that was really important. I think it's applicable here in this context of this conversation, that donors give through your organization to further something that they deeply care about, whatever it is they're trying to influence in the world or change or address, whatever, or make it a better place, a more beautiful place. It's all the lovely missions of our organizations. And I think that kind of sets up a nice segue in terms of our partnerships with our clients, Gina, what those look like for us and as consultants.
mhm.
What makes those partnerships work?
I mean, I think what makes the partnerships work is well, it's truly collaborative for one thing, but we have to understand what an organization's goals are. Are
Mhm.
they interested in launching a campaign? Are they interested in just increasing their year over year philanthropic revenue run rate, right? Are they interested in helping a board understand its role in fundraising? All of these things are things that we encounter and we work with clients um, to help accomplish. And the interesting thing is sometimes organizations come to us saying, we want to do X, but through sort of a discovery process, and it's almost like when you're working with a potential donor, the discovery process, when you get to know each other and figure out what's, under the surface, we find out that, maybe somebody says they want to launch a campaign, but maybe a campaign isn't really what they're thinking. They're thinking a campaign because it is um, an obvious way to raise revenue in some folks' minds. Oftentimes, organizational leaders and board members think, "Oh, we need to raise revenue. Okay, campaign." Well, sometimes a campaign isn't really what you want. What you want is an increased run rate. And so collaborating to figure those things out and sort of unpick the problem, that's really how we work together. But
Absolutely.
but
And
then we need to bring accountability, right? So that's one of the
mhm,
benefits is so once we have sort of diagnosed what the problem is, what needs to be addressed, then our role as consultants is to develop the plan that helps you address it
mhm.
and then keep you on track as you execute the plan. That's the role.
And I would say it was, I don't know, sometime earlier this year, I went back and read a few of the earlier feasibility studies or campaign planning studies that I had been either done myself or been part of. And I
Mhm,
looked at our recommendations and I looked at the clients, kind of the successes and some maybe who weren't as successful, but the ones who were really successful are the ones who leaned into the recommendations.
mhm,
It's fairly evident. And I don't say that to say, oh, we were right and they were wrong or anything like that, because as Gina pointed out, sometimes we find a different direction becomes kind of reveals itself, if you will, and becomes the better way to go. But I would say, so if you're thinking about hiring a consultant, I think this would be some of our parting advice, what we'll talk about here. And I think one of those is really lean into the relationship. I like to frame it as a relationship with your consultant. Just don't think of them as sort of a vendor that's providing deliverable one, two, and three, and you're just there as a recipient. You're an active partner in that relationship. And the more you share with your consultant about your organization, the challenges, your board, the team, anything that you think is impacting what it is you want to achieve, good, bad, and indifferent, you need to share that with your consultant. The consultant will tell you that's important. Well, I appreciate you sharing. I'm gonna park it over here. Maybe it's not as important. You don't need to worry about it as much. And oftentimes, what we also find is many clients often have a fairly decent idea of what it is that might work. They just aren't real sure about it. And the consultant brings that level of not only that's a pretty good idea, maybe, but maybe we have offer a way to particularly frame or
mhm,
execute that idea and maybe really discern with you through whether this is what you need to be doing or not doing.
mhm. Yeah, I agree. I think there's We can help with the nuance for sure. Um, Sometimes the biggest thing we can do is help you have confidence, help organizations have confidence that their instincts are heading them in the right direction.
Mhm.
Um, that is legitimately something that a consultant can do and can also, nudge you
Mhm.
if it's going a little bit off track.
Yeah. And I think what I'll end with this little story, and you know, one of the things I will say too, a good consulting company and good consultants deeply care about what happens with their clients. And you know, recently I had the opportunity with two of our clients to actually see the construction in various stages of process that was going on for the client for the campaign that these two particular clients are doing, and to actually physically see these outcomes of all of this work, all of our advice and care concern and partnership with these clients was really kind of touched my heart, if you will, because that is it's to see them get what they are so need to in order to be able to further the mission of the organization, serve the people that they serve, and actually be successful is hugely rewarding, I would think. You
I agree
agree?
with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, some of the organizations I've worked with longest, I've watched them come so far, and it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And I'm seeing the things that they were talking about 5 years ago coming to fruition,
Yeah.
and that's incredible.
It is incredible. So I think as consultants, that is our reward for the work that we do, which we are immensely grateful. So I hope everyone who's joined today has gained a little bit of insight of what a relationship and a work with a consultant might look like, and some of the stories that we shared, and some of the things that are concerned with or care about. And we hope you all have enjoyed hearing from us today. So thanks, Gina. It's always fun.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks, Catherine.